and call the meeting to order. Chelsea, brother, sorry.
Mr. Edwards,
Here.
Mr. Palumbo,
Here.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Mrs. Lee is on her way, and we'll see what is the whereabouts in this screen. So, is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted? I have no additions or.
The only thing that moved, there are no changes, but Kelsey pointed out at the end of the day that one of the voting items under her section was actually under the information line. So all I did is I moved it from what I had emailed you. If you look at the treasurer's report, it was listed as C under information items by accident, and it should be item E, which the copy that you have in your folder here of the board agenda has it listed under Kelsey's new business, item E, which was recommendation to approve a 3-year client agreement with Strategic Management Solutions for E-rate consulting services for category 2 expenses. So again, it was accidentally in the email this weekend put under information items, and I just moved it to the new business so that it could be a voting item.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ken, seconded by Israel. Have the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. We had been given a copy of the regular board meeting for December. Is there a motion to approve that, those minutes?
I move.
Okay, yeah, no. Moved by Israel, yes, you can, but moved by Israel. Jackie, is there a second coming from you? Yes. Okay, second for Jackie. We'll have a roll, please.
Mr. Palumbo,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. And I know that we have a meeting on the 1st, or the 14th rather. Is there a
Just
report?
a couple of updates here, because I see that no one's part of us here this evening, unless they're running behind. The agenda had been shared by Diane. Kent actually and I talked over the phone today a little bit. The main thing that we talked about was that we have the upcoming quality review with due date of May of 2022. And we also have a compliance review that is coming up June of 2022 as well. I started doing some work on that, trying to get policies organized in preparation for that review. And Steve Keller and I will be meeting probably sometime in February for our second site visit, in which we will be going through this massive spreadsheet and looking at all the different compliance items that we have to make sure we meet. So that's the main part of our meeting, which actually took place on Friday. And the other thing we talked about was just school funding in general, looking at the new funding formula and changes, impacts from those changes, which Kelsey's going to talk about.
I will dive into that.
Are there any questions? We'll move on to the liaison reports and reports from board members. Under the president's report, the only thing I have to report is that Israel and I had been in communication to initiate the evaluation for the superintendent and the treasurer for 2021. And I really have nothing else to report. Is there anything else, Jackie, in the finance? And personnel, Israel?
I have nothing.
We do want to note that there has been a recommendation to consider the hiring of an additional intervention specialist, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that. Under professional development, I know there have been some discussion and meetings about that. For
Yes,
professional
development, yes. We actually are converting this Friday to a staff professional development day, which our students will be a remote learning day. Some of the items that we're going to be focusing on is we're going to be learning Slack, which is a new communication tool. It's going to replace GroupMe that we're currently using, David's going to lead the training on Slack. We're also going to be working on updating progress reports and student success plans that day. And then in the afternoon, Bonnie Meyer from State Support Team 2 is going to be here joining us. And she's going to lead us through looking at the STAR testing data and learning how to interpret the different reports that are out there and available from STAR testing.
Busy day.
It is going to be busy. That's going to go by quickly.
Very good. And anything additional under sponsorship?
Nothing additional.
We'll move on to the treasurer's report then.
Okay. The top of your board packet is the minutes, so if you want to go ahead and flip past that. Yeah. So one thing that I've been working on is our E-rate funding. We've been receiving category 1 funding, but in applying for our E-rate funding, because you would have applied for this school year last year around this time, we weren't utilizing any category 2 services. We weren't getting any of our discounts on that. And so I wanted to look into that further. And it actually came about that our renewal with Think CSC is coming up in February, which David will touch on a little bit. But their services, a lot of what we get through them and a lot of the hardware, it's very expensive, qualifies for category 2 services. So I've worked with our E-rate consultant, and he's helped me put together our wish list. And last year, for example, our Think CSC bills between August and October added up to almost $21,000. And we would have gotten an 85% discount rate on those had we gone through E-rate. So this Think CSC quote that we're going to give you for February, we can't apply E-rate to that because we didn't apply for it last year. But I did get approval that we can pay for that through ESSER. So we did go ahead and ask for some hardware and some updates that are going to be necessary over the next coming years. And we wanted to offset some of that expense that's coming by doing some of those things now. But that quote that we'll present to you toward the end is going to be covered entirely by ESSER. And in the future, we can probably continue to pay for it through ESSER while we have it, but it makes sense to start doing it through E-rate regardless and use less of our ESSER money and eventually less of our general fund. So behind our E-rate wish list for next year.
Could I ask what an access point is?
That's how the Wi-Fi is distributed through.
Okay, so an increase, how many access points do we have now?
Is that one right there?
40?
Yes. Cisco.
Yeah.
Between 40 and 50.
Okay, so we need additional.
They have to be replaced.
Yeah.
They're going out of, first of all, they're going out of spec. And second of all, they're going out of support.
Okay.
So we have to renew the licenses every year. And then these are the recommended hardware purchases that are Think CSC, what do you call them? But whoever coordinates these services for us, we've been working with him in the past. This is what he recommended over like the next 3 years. He gave us some ongoing quotes. And so this was what was recommended for next year.
Okay.
Licenses are kind of a combination of a right to use the product and also the Wi-Fi spec has changed. Most of you, if you have older equipment, we're on 802.11, what was called 802.11n. The most recent standard was 802.11.ac, and the new standard is 802.11. Is it X? I can't remember. There's a new spec though. So as new devices come out, they use the new spec. Plus, new specs are more secure, and I'm sure you've read about all the problems that have been going on with hospitals, and even Buckeye Cable has got a major ransomware problem. So we have to keep up with that stuff.
Yeah.
Following the wish list, I just have the client agreement with our E-rate consultant. We already go through him for our category 1 expenses. It's just that the category 2 expenses require a separate agreement. And that is item E under the new business.
Would you highlight the cost just in case people don't have a chance to look at that?
Yeah, it's a percentage of whatever we get through E-rate.
So under number 3, fee and payment, you can see that there's a minimum of $500 and 5% of the approved funding amount.
It will save us a significant amount of money with the 85% discount.
That's great.
I think behind that, his includes an exhibit A as well, so if there's no further questions about that, we can go ahead and move on to the SO2 update. So as we talk about financial planning for next year and current expenses and things like that, I thought it would be useful to update our current budget layout of SR2 and what we're currently paying for through ESSER, so we can keep that in mind for when the ESSER funds disappear. The 1.3 million that you see listed at the bottom, that's our entire allocation. Now we have been spending that already, so we don't have that 1.3 left. If you kind of want to look at this page, I guess because I stapled it, this is difficult, but the one behind it goes right along with it. And this is kind of where I give you a breakdown of the numbers that you're seeing in this budget chart. So for example, in the very top left on the chart, you can see the 440,000 amount under instructional salaries. So things that we're paying for under the instructional salaries and benefits are our tutors, our 3 general education teachers, and we've funded summer hours through that money. Support staff salaries and retirement fringe benefits, we currently pay our technology coordinator, our maintenance, our food service, our long-term substitute, our door screener, our 2 data entry, and our substitute teacher, which is Ann Street, and she does grading for us, I believe. Instructional purchase services, these are our Verizon bills. We're currently paying for broadband connections for students who don't have internet access at home. They have those computers that require that broadband connection, so we get a monthly bill. We did get approval to pay through those through ESSER. Family and community purchase services, this is our advertising and the town money saver.
Have we had anybody, last time I talked to you, you had one person?
No, I haven't gotten feedback from Sherry and Robert recently as to how many said that the town money savers is what attracted them to enrollment, but we have had a lot of enrollments lately, and we've seen a little bit of an increase in enrollment from last month to this month. So I believe that it is making a positive difference. I know people have said they've seen the advertisement, so I think, you know, they see it after another month or two, because we're going to continue this coming month with the advertisement. You know, it's going to become something that people recognize. Oh yeah, Townsend, I remember seeing that last month. So I think it's a difference.
I had a professor from Heidelberg reach out to me about having possible college students come here for some of their like service hours after she saw the advertisement in the money saver. Like
We've been trying to get that
like,
for years.
she knew that I was here, saw that in there, and she made those connections to reach out. So, you know.
And actually, like, now that you say that, yes, in February, I'm going to be speaking at the Port Clinton Kiwanis. At the site, they saw the advertisement too, and then they contacted me asking if I would talk about the school with them. So, yeah.
So it's made some other connections other than enrollments
It is
too.
making a difference.
I thought it was a good idea from the beginning, so I just wanted to extra pay up.
Safety purchase services, that was our PA system. Facilities purchase services, these are things like maintenance and repairs for the air conditioners and other COVID-related repairs, anything that we can tie to COVID. It's mostly the air quality, but instructional supplies, we're going to hopefully purchase Chromebooks through ESSER. Support services supplies, this is the Think CSC quote that David will explain further at the end. This is what we just talked about with our E-rate funding. Safety supplies, things like bottled water, cleaning supplies, and then the capital outlay is the Ethernet switches, those are over $5,000 per unit, which is why they have to be under the capital outlay. The third page, the bottom note, is just that we had previously paid for those Verizon internet connections out of the general fund, and I was able to move that prior expense into ESSER, so we did get a little over $1,000 back from that. That was exciting. Does anybody have any questions?
I love the explanations. Absolutely.
The first thing that you'll see is our cash reconciliation as we dive into the financial reports. You can see we balance at the end of the month around 2.4 million. On our disbursement summary, I didn't have anything particular that jumped out as not common, not what we normally see. I did circle one for you on the second page. The Julian and Groove expense, that's one we don't see very often. That was our GAAP reporting, so I just wanted to remind you of that.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Clark.
Well, always done.
We then have our outstanding disbursement summary, and if there's no questions over that, we can go ahead and move on to our monthly spreadsheet. On our monthly spreadsheet, if you look in the top right section, you can see our revenue is similar to where it was in November. And we saw the December payment at the last meeting, we discussed that. So again, our career tech funding was negative. We're hoping to see a big improvement there. In the bottom left, you can see our expenses are well budgeted yet. So around the end of December, we'd expect to be at about 50%. So we're falling under that in all the categories. We did, however, at the very bottom right, we did come in negative for the month at a negative $35,787. So our revenue is what's really hurting us at the moment. We're going to talk a little further about the new funding formula and how it's going to impact us. I want to preface that with the ODE is kind of a dumpster fire right now with the new foundation payments. They aren't sure how things are working. They're not sure of parts of the formula. So there are parts that we're not sure on right now. I'm going to do my best to explain what they have made clear to us. So your next two pages are both our January payment. One is our statement of settlement, which looks like what you normally see per month. And one is a summary of this payment, which will kind of help us understand how our payment's going to change next month. So looking at the statement of settlement, the very bottom right number, you can see we received a payment of almost $2.6 million for the month. And our annual amount jumped to over $7 million. Ryan and I both met with James Landon following the community schools payment seminar, and this was definitely not accurate. It would have been very exciting had it been. If you look at the summary side, they're not clear on how they're going to be taking that back, because looking at that, there's a chance that we could be funded a little bit over what we should be getting for the year at this point, based on what we got through December and then that giant payment that they just gave us. He did not give us any kind of clear answer about how they plan on pulling money back or what the plan is for that. So we're not clear on that. Obviously, at this point, we have no intention of touching that. That'll sit in the bank account until we know further information. On your summary page, you can see I circled that 3.3 million under column B. $3,300,440.18. So that number is the number that our payment was supposed to be based off of. They based it off the 8 million. That was where the mistake occurred. That's why we ended up with an annual amount over 7 million. We were told it should have been based off this 3.3 million. the number next to it, column C. James said that this was going to be recalculated in February, so this amount shouldn't be what comes off of our 3.3 million, but there is going to be an amount coming off of it. So our total funding for the year won't equal 3.3 million. Now you also will add in all the way on the right side, if you come down to row I, that's our facilities funding. That also gets added to that 3.3. So for February, I kind of gave what we're expecting to see with column B minus the recalculation for column C will equal column D, and we will add in column I. And that's our funding for the year before our paybacks to the state and before the retirement comes out. We did get our paybacks to the state lowered. They did a true up with what our FTE currently is because we were paying on last year's FTE, which was so much higher. So those did come down a little bit. You can see that on your statement of settlement. If you look under the adjustments all the way to the right, our paybacks went down pretty significantly. One of them is, or our payback is the $6,686.90. That's our FTE review payback. The temporary withholding that you see, there's a new catastrophe funding that they're withholding from the special ed funding, but they haven't quite figured out how they're doing it yet. So we're not going to see that until March. So until then, they're trying to mimic it with their guess of this temporary withholding amount, this negative 18,000. So that's what that's supposed to represent. It's part of the new funding formula that they don't have figured out yet.
We'll just take 18,000.
I believe they said it was like 6% maybe of the special education funding.
Yeah.
Temporarily is what they're doing,
Yeah,
withholding the.
yeah.
So going back to the summary of the school finance payment, with your algebra there, B minus C equals D plus I,
Yes.
what is that amount?
So because he said C is gonna be recalculated in February, we don't know.
Okay.
He made it sound like it was gonna be a lower number, which is what I'm hoping for. My estimate is that it's going to be the 3.3 million times the percentage, the phase-in percentage, the 16%. And I believe that's what's gonna come off the 3.3. I'm not positive on that. But I calculated out about where that puts us at. And our December annual amount, the prediction was $2,921,927.39. So about 2.9 million before our paybacks and retirement. And if you take out the 16.7% and add in that facilities funding, the I, we come out very, very close to that. Like we're not getting much more, about $3,000 more, a little under that. So we don't have a clear idea until we see February's payment and we see how they are recalculating that. I'm hoping it's a lower number than this 800,000, because if that's what they're taking off, we would be getting less funding, and I can't see how that would happen.
So our annual forecast then is close to the 2.9 million. That's what we were basing our projections on.
Yes,
Okay.
it's gonna come in similar.
Okay. So as we look at the sheet, the spreadsheet that you always give us, then this is based on an annual income of 2.9.
So
The general fund.
the revenue estimates were initially higher because we talked about how in August, we had thought the graduates would be replaced a little bit more by enrollment. We thought enrollment would be up a little bit more. So we had, in August, thought that our payment was gonna be a little bit closer to what it had been.
Right.
And then that didn't end up happening. So our revenue on here, you can see that's why our estimate versus our actual, there's a big discrepancy between them. But on that 5-year forecast, we did predict that lower revenue, around the 2.9.
So at what point in time are these adjustments corrected then?
The estimates were made at the beginning of the year, so they stay for the year.
Okay.
But on the 5-year forecast in November, they were adjusted, and they'll get adjusted again as we do the 5-year forecast update in May.
In that.
Yes. The work that we did at the financial meeting, that was all done based on these payments.
Okay. Based on the 3.9 million?
No, based on, what we were seeing in November and October, the lower estimates.
Okay.
But yeah, around the 2.9. It's
Okay,
our
that's what so the planning that we're doing is based on the lower amount. We have not been inflating, if you will,
no,
what we're expecting.
no, we were going off of the most recent numbers that we had in November. The only issue is that when the December payment came in lower than the November payment, that annual prediction goes down.
Yeah.
So as our monthly payment kept going down, so did our annual prediction.
Okay.
I'm hoping in February, we're gonna have a better idea of about where we're gonna sit next year. Where I'm assuming our enrollment is holding pretty steady about where it is, so if they get this funding formula to the point where it's steady and we know how that's coming in, it'll be easier to predict where our revenue is gonna be next year. They just need to hash out a couple of the things that are currently wrong, like giving us $2.6 million.
If we ran our households like that.
I know.
Margaretta actually, they shared with us at the sponsor meeting that the same way that they held the community school seminar with us, they held one for traditional schools, and what did they say? He titled his slideshow something like, "The mystery that is the funding formula," like, we don't have it figured out, like.
That was for ODE.
Yeah.
That's right, for ODE.
It's been that way for as long as I can.
We did get confirmation from Aaron Roush, I have it in an email, that because of Senate Bill 229, which was approved in December, we should be able to claim 100% funding, which Adam had actually predicted with us. But when we asked James about it, the community school payment, he's the leader of that, he said it's currently under legal review and they don't have any information right now as to, is that retroactive for the whole year or does it start when it was approved in December? So we don't have that information as of right now to when you can start claiming that 100%.
And they're basing the justification for 100% on the COVID situation.
On the wording, the way the Senate Bill 229 was written,
Okay.
the way that it apparently promised full funding for students because the need to potentially go to remote learning.
Yeah.
Now that would also only be for this year, so that wouldn't hold true for next year.
Right.
But Aaron Roush, being the director of funding for ODE, he clearly put in an email to Kelsey that it would apply to all students. So that's
Whether we chose to go into remote learning or not,
yes, that's how he.
because that was the big question mark before. Was,
Yeah.
did we have to, have a period of time where we said we're remote?
Based on his email, he made it sound like you can claim 100% funding. He basically came out and said you can be doing that now. But we don't know, we didn't get clarification on the dates. And James Landon made it sound like they don't have any clarification on it either. Like it's still being worked through the details of it. So, but that would be very helpful. Hopefully that's something that comes through for this year.
ODE has a lot of internal questions right now that they don't know the answers themselves to, so they cannot provide the answers to schools like us when we ask them. So hopefully in the next month or two, they can get the answers to those questions so that they know what they're doing. And as a result, we know what we're doing, we know what funding that we can anticipate, and then, execute a budget that aligns with what's actually going to be coming in for revenue. Because it's really hard for all schools right now. There's so many variables just up in the air.
The final item I have is our CSC quote that's going to be coming up in February. This is the amount, and David's going to explain it to you a little bit further because we just met with our rep on Friday. But this is the amount that the E-rate won't apply to because we didn't put in for it last year, but we will be able to pay for it again. So I'm going to hand it over to David.
You cost us so much money.
Well, last fall, TCS is our, they manage our servers and our access points here at that school. They do most of it remotely. We do pay for some on-site time, but most of what they do is they go in and make sure all the updates are applied to the server, all the security is applied to the server, all the access points, like they get notified if one of our access points is down, and then they contact me. They tell me if it can be fixed or if it has to be touched. I usually have to call a contractor out to get it down. Fortunately, we haven't had that problem. Everything's been pretty solid so far, but in order to keep it solid, we have to have that. The equipment has to be up to date in order to be guaranteed by Cisco. All of our equipment is Cisco routers and equipment and software and licensing. And I'm sure you've heard of Cisco before. They're pretty much the standard for really the country, maybe the world, as far as networking is concerned. Anyway, because of the age of the devices and etc., they have to be just like a computer, even like a Chromebook. A Chromebook goes out of service every 5 years by Google, just because they can't guarantee that it's safe to operate, that it's reliable, that they can guarantee that the user experience is acceptable. Same thing with servers. Same thing with routers, networking. All those specs are always changing. So in order for us to continue the warranties on those, we have to update the equipment and we have to update the licenses. I can't tell you how this operation would completely stop if we have the network. I mean, you know what it's like in your house if your internet goes down, right? If you have kids. I mean, that's when you see your kids the most, the Wi-Fi. I mean, that's probably the most frequent time at school that I'm notified, is that they can't get, earlier I had a teacher that couldn't get in their Zoom, for example. And it was a little glitchy today, so the kids can't do their work, the teachers can't do their work. We're very reliant on Google services for everything. So this is kind of something this is just the cost of doing business, basically. Since we're going to be applying for E-rate funds for next year, we will, because of that, how that works, this will have to go out to bid. So we'll have to talk about that process going down the pipe. But this year, Kelsey got permission from whoever consultant is for ESSER, that we could pay for this stuff through ESSER and not from the general fund. So she and I had a meeting with the head of networking, or our account manager down in Columbus at TCS. We went through what was coming up as far as warranties and software and what we thought our ability to pay would be. We worked out a schedule over the next 3 or 4 years on replacing and updating all that equipment. So I think that what we're proposing is going to save us money going forward compared to what we paid in the past, because we're able to use grant money. And next year we'll be able to use E-rate, and then whatever's left over, hopefully we pay forward. So I know the prices are kind of eye-popping, but I mean, that's just what it costs.
Is CSC, who our consultants were in the past?
They have been with us since Townsend opened.
That's what I,
Yes. They're very good.
very good.
They're very responsive. We're kind of a small operation, but they don't treat us.
One correction that I want to make, I just noticed it right now, the recommendation to approve the 3-year contract, I don't think we can technically do that because we're going through E-rate next year and it has to go up for bid, like he said. So if they come out to be the most cost effective, we can choose them again, but for this approval, this is just going to be the 1 year. Some of the licenses are 3-year, but I don't think we
purchased it this year.
So we're paying for 1 year, but no one gets.
If we purchased it this year, we're buying a 3-year license. We should be able to.
So the licenses will stay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it can be that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
And then
There's going to be more licenses next year.
Well, and the hardware, we might not necessarily go through that. We're hoping to maintain consistency, but we have to put up and let people bid on it and go. But together some kind of matrix to figure out which is the most cost effective.
If something would go down and we're out of license and out of, spec on our machines, there's nothing that we could do.
Are we
We'd have
out
to buy
now?
everything new and start over.
Are we out now? When do we go out?
We have it set up, we're going out next,
I think it's February 22nd.
yeah,
is what he said.
it's coming up real fast for the first round of it. Everything's not going out of warranty at the same time, which is good.
Yes.
It's gonna be a rolling, you're gonna be hearing this over the course of the next several semesters as we roll through all the updates that are coming.
So when Margaret had talked about the possibility of setting up their own broadband system, do these things take into consideration the possibility of tapping into that?
I don't know anything about what Margaret is proposing.
Ed has talked about leasing a fiber from them, right? That's what he said at our sponsor meeting.
I mean, we can't really make decisions based on something that might happen.
Okay, I just didn't know
I
at
think
what
that's more
point
the
if that.
external source, whereas we're talking more the internal
Yeah,
operation of that Wi-Fi
Yeah.
function.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is all internal stuff. This is all guts that's in the building.
Okay.
This is access points and servers.
Okay,
The
So it
fiber
doesn't-
line,
it
Fiber
doesn't
line.
negate anything else.
no, we don't own the fiber line, and we don't maintain the fiber line.
Yeah.
We just pay to use it. It's like, I mean, think of it like a utility, like water,
Right,
natural gas.
so can we keep these recommendations D and E the same
yes.
then? All right. Is there a motion to approve items A through E of the treasurer's report? Moved by Jackie, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Israel, let's have the roll, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Paloma,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, to begin with, January is the school board recognition month in the state of Ohio. I would like to just take this opportunity to thank all of you for serving in the position that you are serving, and your commitment to our school and our mission to help our students. And Kelsey and I have a small token of appreciation for you guys there on behalf of us and our entire staff. We just want to say thank you.
And thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Your commitment.
Jackie, you'll be
Thank you.
excited to see. You won't have to have supper.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So thank you very much, that's very kind.
Moving on, then we have in your folder, you'll see a handout that has the breakdown of our enrollment data. Take a look at that. And on the front side, we have that breakdown by school district. We have a total, as of today, a total of 511 students enrolled, with 507 of those are within the 6-county radius, or schools that fall at least partially within the 6-county radius. And then we still have 4 students from students that were grandfathered in outside of that 6-county radius. On the back side is a new chart I've added here, just to kind of see from month to month, our board meeting, time of our board meeting, where the enrollment was, and also to factor in where, our number of graduates is, because, as the number of graduates increase, that also decreases our student enrollment. So you can see we have the biggest decline there from September to October, and that's something that traditionally does happen because there's that period where students have been inactive for the first 72 hours of the school year, and we do usually have a group that gets withdrawn initially. So we had that drop from September to October, but beyond that, we saw a smaller drop in November, and things have started to bounce back a little bit. Our enrollment from December to January went from 502 up to 511 students. And also keep in mind that we now have 30 graduates as of this month. So we have 3 additional graduates for approval tonight. Any questions on enrollment?
Thank you for that, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Make those comparisons,
Yeah.
that's all.
Good. Okay, then item C for informational items, the FTE review for this year has been canceled. So this was also connected to Senate Bill 229. We received notification from Sherman Mishak, who's our area FTE coordinator. Because of Senate Bill 229, the wording in there, ODE is not going to do the FTE review this year. They will come back and do the FTE review in 2023. So, you know, we're okay with that. That's one thing we don't have to worry about come summertime. So that is good. One other item that we had mentioned, I don't have it down here. I think we need to look at hiring an intervention specialist for the remainder of the school year. I've talked with our administration, and you know, they also feel that this is a need. We have two intervention specialists who are going to be going on maternity leave soon. And it would be wise if we find a candidate that we think is a good fit, it'd be wise to bring somebody in for the remainder of the year, train them so that they're ready once the teachers are on maternity leave to help carry the caseload. Because remember, we can only have 24 students on an IEP with intervention specialists at a time. That's the limit. So if we lose 2 intervention specialists from maternity leave, you know, we're going to be at a point where we're probably above 24 per teacher. So, you know, we'd like to bring somebody in for the remainder of the year. It's only for this school year, and then we'll have to see where our numbers are from this summer. Any thoughts or questions in regards to that?
I had a question about Ann Stream. So Ann is I know doing grading, and she is a substitute.
She's technically a teacher for us. She's a teacher.
That's
And her license, her substitute license allows her to be the teacher of record for some of those elective courses.
Okay, because she formerly was an intervention specialist, and I didn't know if that was an area.
I know she does go down to Florida sometimes too, so she's working sometimes remotely from there, but in the role she's in currently, she can't do that.
Okay. Because and she's full-time.
No, she's part-time.
Okay.
Hourly.
She's part-time.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Maintenance of effort wise, it would help us to hire because we have to meet our maintenance effort quota anyway. And we talked about how, you know, we can bring back Sandy Carroll as an intervention specialist or tournamenting. So we really only replaced Danielle Parrish. So as for meeting maintenance of effort wise, this would be helpful.
Yeah, that also factored into the decision to recommend that we look to hire that position.
Right. And when do the maternity leaves do we have?
Potentially
Yes.
one in March and then one early April.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
So, so what are your thoughts? What's your feedback on it?
Sounds like me.
Yeah, technically, I mean, you only pay them for, what, like, half a year now?
About half of the year.
Like, yeah. And that's not insurances or anything, right?
Well, it could be,
Could be.
potentially, yeah, it's probably a full-time position for the remainder of the year. Kind of like last year, we hired Danielle Parrish at the start of January. She did an excellent job for us, you know, throughout the school year, then moved to, I think, North or South Carolina. Same situation there, so there could potentially be insurance benefits. But again, like Kelsey said, we're falling short right now in that maintenance of effort, which we have to show that we maintain the same expenses for our special ed expenses. So it's a need, something an expense that we need to take on actually.
So does that need to become an action item?
No, I think all we need to do is have a conversation that we are.
You can
agreement to
pursue the
pursue,
position.
And then we can have a
I
recommendation.
think we're all, are you in agreement?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Proceed with that.
Okay. The other item for discussion here is graduation. We, as an administration team, we've started talking a little bit about, you know, do we continue to do what we did last year where we had individual graduation celebrations, which actually worked out very well, or do we try to schedule a group graduation ceremony like we did in past years? You know, pros and cons to each. I know right now the COVID is really going up and down, and it's been a spike lately, so we don't know where it's going to be come May and June. The safe route is probably to go one more year with the individual graduation celebrations and then review it again next year. Or if there's a feel that we should pursue a group graduation ceremony, we could look at that. And I just want to bring it to discussion here as a group to get feedback from the board on that item.
How have you been handling the 30 graduates that we've had? Have they had the photo op and opportunities that our graduates have in the past?
They've had the opportunity to come in and ring the bell. The family can watch. We presented the diploma. We didn't have necessarily all the bells and whistles that we did at the end of last school year with the photo room and the gifts and those sorts of things.
I was here to see a couple of those and they were wonderful. And to be honest, it was so personal.
That's
The
right.
families were right there. It just seemed to work out beautifully. It's an advantage to us as a school because of the cost. And I don't mean to always be thinking of that, but I don't know that the cost outweighed the personalness of that intimate graduation, ceremony. I guess I just would be hopeful that maybe we could it would be ongoing. So it wouldn't be something necessarily that would wait until the end of the school year, but that all of our graduates have that opportunity and have that
Same experience.
that same experience. That's my opinion. So I don't know, but
No, I agree. It sounds great.
yeah, and Tara's
She
gone.
had to look her daughter up.
But I think the staff were positive about it too, weren't they?
Yep.
I think one of the best parts about it is just that you graduate in January, you get your celebration then,
Exactly.
Yeah,
the way that we're structured.
Exactly.
it makes a lot of sense with our format.
Do we
Yeah.
have the option of creating that photo room again though? Because that was very popular.
We'll have to look at that. We might use a different
Room, yeah,
because we filled some of those offices.
yeah.
So do the other students is that happens during the school day? So
Yeah, it could be right in the middle of school day where student. their
we
family
stop
comes in.
everything and
Whoever's around, platform.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And then they had a room available, which would have to be flexible. Might need a screen that you could pull down and that kind of thing, but it was wonderful. The families were there together and, you just made them feel so special.
I think we'll look to go that route then this year again, and we'll talk about trying to make sure that the ones that are happening now are getting the full experience and not just a partial experience. Okay. Thank you very much for your feedback on that. All right, moving on to new business. Item A, we have recommendation to approve the awarding of high school diplomas to the following students upon successful completion of the graduation requirements as set forth by the state of Ohio. We have 3 this month: Hannah Easton, Logan Estes, and Ashley Gunlock. Item B is a recommendation to approve the TCS school calendar for the 2022-2023 school year as presented. There is a copy here in the folder.
Brian, could I ask, is this in conjunction with Margaret's calendar?
It's aligned to Margaret's. There's only small differences. Like, for example, the August 29th will be our first day, and that's a staff day for them. But I wanted to make sure that our hours were put out to 920 hours.
Right.
And also our teacher work days was 184 days per what their contract is right now.
I guess what I wondered was if our teachers were in favor of having that whole week after Christmas or after New Year's as opposed to the week before.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
I just wondered how our staff weighed in on this calendar. Are they given a chance to have?
No, I don't think I've shared this with the staff,
Okay.
but this past year we did try to align it as much as we could to Margaret.
Right, and I know it makes sense, but I just thought I don't know that, maybe they would welcome that after as opposed to the week before Christmas, but I just wondered about adjusting those days so that there would be a couple more days off before Christmas and they wouldn't have the whole week off after New Year's, if that's what our staff would
The
prefer.
only problem with that is you're gonna run into a problem with the bus drivers. They don't have to run the Margaret routes, but then they'll have to run Townsend. It might be an overtime issue, like, let's say, January 5th and 6th, we're back in school, but Margaret's not. They may have a problem where they're having to pay their drivers overtime those days, because the scheduled day off Margaret.
That was the only thought I had on the calendar.
Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know.
Yeah, well, and I like that
Some-
it was called winter break. 'cause
Yeah,
that's probably
Right. Some work out better than others.
Yeah.
So you do go till the 23rd if we approve this, which is only 2 days before Christmas, but I guess looking at the other end of things, you know, the staff and the students would get off through to January 6th, which is probably something that would be.
And more aligned with colleges, actually. I don't have any problem with it, I just wondered if staff had any.
Yeah, I did not put it out there, so I was just not sure I want to put it out there with it not being official yet.
Yeah.
Start circulating.
Okay, move on.
Item C is a recommendation to purchase 100 Chromebooks from Trifera at a total cost of $28,920 per the quote presented. And I put quotes plural there because they did provide us with 2 different quotes. One is for 67 computers they currently have in stock, and then another quote is for 33 that would be on board. And they said that they have to work with David, they have to give us 2 different quotes on that. David said that these prices are very good prices for Chromebooks. They've got all the packages on them that we need. Dave, do you want to talk about some of those other items that we need in addition to just the Chromebook?
Yeah, we bought 2 models of Chromebooks last year, these Samsungs, which I had to grab right now because I need my computer over there. The reason we bought these is because they have the ability to connect to a cellular network. I would not buy these if given a choice, but it was the only real option that was out there for cellular ones. The computers that we did buy last year that I love are the Lenovo 300Es. They're very durable. They have a plastic shell. I haven't had I've had problems with the Samsungs. I haven't had any problems with those. These seem to have, if they sleep for a long, or if they're not charged for a long time, the battery doesn't want to wake up. I've had since I brought them back. But the thing I like most about the Lenovo's is that they're very rugged. They're solid plastic. I know GE brought in a comparison model from another competitor, and the thing that strikes me about that one is that there's a big difference in the guts. Like the 300Es have an AMD processor and a discrete video card, and our kids do a lot of video and stuff on their.
And that one didn't? I thought it
It's
did.
got generic.
Okay,
It says other on the spec.
okay.
But this has, AMD is not, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on AMD, but AMD bought out a company called ATI. You've never heard of ATI because they make video cards for computers for years and years and years. It's all one company now. So, but the big thing I like about the Lenovo's is that they've been solid, we've had them, and I know that if they're dropped, they're going to survive. I was really shocked that they were selling them for under $300 because we weren't getting prices like that last time around.
I was looking at those in November.
Oh, okay.
And, was real familiar with them also, and I was impressed with them.
Yeah,
And we purchased one for private
they're
share.
very nice. The kids love them. They definitely prefer. I had a girl in one of the testing rooms that had one of our old original ThinkPads, and they're like that thick, and they have no trackpad. And I just walked out there and said, "Hey, you want to trade your Chromebook in for a newer model?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, yes." So she came down, I took her old ThinkPad, and I gave her a new Chromebook. But yeah, the kids like them. them to use them, and that's why I want to stick with that particular.
Okay.
Plus, that's your thankful.
Should have led with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's a lot, but we got down to like 50 Chromebooks a couple weeks ago. Out of that batch we bought last time. The way I think about it, we used to spend $100 a textbook on students.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, compared to what, we don't buy textbooks anymore, we're buying laptops, and
Yeah.
it's actually less than what we used to spend on textbooks.
Yeah.
Then item D is a recommendation to approve Tori Ruiz to receive $5 per hour in addition to our current hourly rate, which is $25 per hour, for hours that she would work serving as a Spanish interpreter on an as-needed basis as determined by the superintendent/principal. So this past week, we did have a need for this. We had a parent come in that was Spanish speaking, and she did a fantastic job of helping with the interpretation of that enrollment meeting. Tori said that in past positions, she has been paid $5 extra per hour for hours that she works as an interpreter. I did consult with Adam Shira, and he said that sounded like a reasonable idea. So I want to bring that recommendation to the board this evening. Then finally, item E is a recommendation to approve the following policies as presented. There's a lot of them there, so I'm not going to read them all out loud. But there are no changes with these policies. These are just policies that need to be approved each year as part of the sponsorship policy. Any questions on items A through E?
Is there a motion, if hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve items A through E? So, moved by Jackie, is there a second? Then we'll have discussion.
I second.
Now discussion. Reservations.
I think Chromebooks were, he explained it, the $5 an hour for being an interpreter. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Israel, did you have any question?
No, I think it's.
Okay. All right, we'll have the roll, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. All right, what I'd like to do is ask for a motion that we move into executive session with just the board members for a very short period of time to discuss the evaluation of public employees.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Ken, second by Israel. Have a roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee. Yes. Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Move into executive session at 6:02, and it won't be long.